Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. So today I've got Nikkamcgahan here with us again because we had so much fun the last time that I invited her to come back to talk more about AI stuff. Good morning, Nikka.
Good morning, Alice. Yes, that's right. I'm Nikka. Welcome.
So talk to me a little bit about your background. Remind my listeners, especially if they did not hear the first episode with you, what you do.
Yeah. So my background is in ethics. So I did my degree at Duke University in China, and I specialized in AI ethics with philosophy as well. And right now I'm just, trying to talk about more AI topics, and who better than Alice?
That's awesome. And today we have an interesting one. Nikka came to me and said, "Hey, let's kick around some ideas that we can talk about." And I think the one where we landed is talking about negotiating with your or about your doppelganger, right? So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more deeply about what you have in mind when you say that? Because I'm sure some of the listeners are like, "What do you mean by that?"
Yes, of course. Okay, so to give you more of a detailed overview of what even is a digital doppelganger, we kind of have to start with what is currently out in the world right now. So, what we're seeing is machine learning, which gives predictions for different tasks, and then large language models or LLMs, which are more about generative AI. And so, using a combination of those two mechanics and techniques, we are creating a digital doppelganger, which takes your data as an individual. It could be your voice, your image, your just facts about yourself that are out in the data or in the world, and creates another entity, autonomous entity, which is called your digital doppelganger. So obviously, we're going to have a lot of issues in terms of what does it mean for the individual and their intellectual property and their data.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like my brain is going to so many different things because first it could be about other people using our likeness,
Mhm.
but then there's also us using AI for our own likeness as well, right? It goes both ways, right? For example, what I'm thinking of are what if someone is using AI to generate a headshot that is not a
Mhm.
true headshot of me, and then I'm presenting it as this is me when I'm going to like auditions, right? And I'm saying
Right.
this is my headshot. So there's that one piece where people are somewhat falsely presenting themselves. It
Yeah.
is a doppelganger of myself, but it is not a true shot of myself. And then in reverse, you might have someone like an actor or a voiceover actor, and suddenly AI is generating your likeness, your voice.
Mhm.
Maybe they're using your voice and they're doing a voiceover for a book and having the doppelganger read the entire book. And so then the question becomes, how are we going to be negotiating compensation
Mhm.
for a company using not even compensation, like permission,
Right.
company to use our voice or our likelihood or face and that sort of thing. So like, what are your thoughts just from an ethics perspective regarding either of these scenarios?
So for the first one, when it's about misrepresentation and honestly misinformation, um, on the ethics moment, I'm like, whoa, 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 let's step back. Um, of course, there's going to be people who utilize their digital doppelgangers in a way that misrepresents them or at least is trying to give a falsehood. And I think that's where maybe we think of things in terms of, okay, how is there going to be control in the sense of what you can actually do with your digital doppelganger? I don't know where that's going to go. It's very like new. So I don't think we have any legal procedures or ethical procedures in terms of what people can actually do with their intellectual property. But I think in terms of misinformation, say, for example, when you're utilizing your AI digital doppelganger, if there's misinformation that goes against, maybe it's just, blatant propaganda or blatant whatever, I think there's a lot of issues with that in terms of societal impact. How to control that is another question in itself. Um, and the second one, in terms of what companies are doing, or, for example, like you said, the voiceover kind of situation, if a company is taking your intellectual property, your intellectual data, and utilizing it for their own profit, then of course there's going to be a lot of power dynamic issues in terms of, ethics related things. So that's just my question, my thoughts right off the bat is, of course, there's going to be issues with that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, though, in terms of negotiation. Like, let's say a
Right.
company comes to me and I'm a voiceover actor and I've been reading all these books, but they say, hey, we don't have to have you sit down and spend
Yeah.
all these hours. We have your voice captured and we can just have your voice like generate, and read all of these books. I mean, I still feel like you can negotiate, a pay that
Mhm.
compensates your voice, whether it is royalties or whether it's, a flat fee for the
Mm.
use of my voice, or whether it is a flat fee for one project only
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. And so you can definitely think of different things that you can negotiate. And right now I feel like it's sort of a brand new field, right?
Yes,
Where
it
people are,
is.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so the negotiation pieces are sort of like still
They're still
new.
up in the air. Yeah. There's a lot of, of course, legal kind of procedures that go into it. But in terms of negotiation aspects, like, of course, there's going to be that initial negotiation between the person, their intellectual property, and the company that wants to use them. So, if the company's being really scummy, of course they can be like, yeah, we have it, so we're going to use it, and you don't get any pay. But most likely that's not going to happen. There's going to be some pushback from, of course, the employees talking about, hey, we need pay, we need royalties like this. But my question was coming back to, like, I'm thinking about, sure, you can have royalties and stuff like that, but when it comes to a fee in terms of labor, I think that's also a question because AI is so quick to generate something within seconds. And for somebody who is providing their labor, it takes way longer than that. It's
Right.
going to take hours on hours, maybe, days, a week, however long it takes for that project. And I think when we're getting into the royalties aspect, we have to determine the weight and time of each aspect. So, labor, of course, is going to be a flat fee, but for royalties for a generative AI digital doppelganger for a couple seconds, that might be the lowest royalties you're ever going to get. So you have
Exactly.
to kind of weigh that labor against, your
Right.
property.
Right. Well, and also, it becomes more about not about the labor, but
Hmm.
more about, the voice or the
Yes.
talent,
Yeah.
right? So you're paying strictly for the talent,
Hmm.
which even if I'm not putting the labor in to read a book,
Yeah.
if I've already been proven like a very popular
Yeah.
reader and people like my voice and they like my inflections, then I think the pay, in order for it to be fair, both to the people who are no longer paying for their labor, as well as fair for the people who want to use your voice or your likelihood, right?
Hmm.
To say, okay, great, I'm going to pay you more money than I would normally pay for
Yes.
AI generative
Yeah.
because I'm paying more for your talent,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And so,
Yes, I definitely think that's a good point. Is it's more, yeah, more about talent and less than about labor, because now we're getting into the, new age of, well, labor is very, dispensable. So when it comes to how is AI going to be utilized in a fair ethical sense, of course it's going to be putting more weight on the talent and the actual pro the producer of that talent. Um yeah, that's a good question.
And also, like right now we're talking about people who are free agents, but what if we talk about people who are employees?
Mhm.
And a lot of times companies say whatever work you generate, if you're putting together a white paper or a report or what have you, typically if you're an employee, everything you generate
Mhm.
belongs to the company. So then
Yes.
what if you are an employee and they're generating things with you and
Mhm.
your likeness,
Mhm.
and then they say, okay, well, you're an employee, we've created this thing, we're using it, it belongs to us, and then beyond me being an employee, the question becomes, what can they use of my likeness if they're saying, well, we've already captured your likeness, we already own it,
Yeah.
now are they able to continue using it for their profit beyond my employment there if they
Mhm.
say everything that they've already created belongs to them?
Right. And I'm also thinking if they have, the access to that talent, they have the access to just utilizing that digital doppelganger for whatever means, not only is it kind of a slide to the employee themselves, but also a slide to future employees because the talent that they're accumulating is going to be more than necessary to continue operations. And so the flow of employee, like the labor market, would kind of be disrupted by that simply because new talent isn't necessary, immediately necessary when another talent leaves. So that's, oh my gosh, I'm like, overrun by like, oh my God, this is so bad. But yes, AI digital doppelgangers are kind of an issue right now for negotiation simply because everything is such a question and nothing is concrete. Um, but that's just with people who are utilizing digital doppelgangers as, people themselves living and breathing.
Now, if like let's say, because I worked for a company a long time ago where they had a full marketing department,
Hmm.
and for whatever reason they decided to ask the employees, "Hey, can we take your photograph and can we
Hmm.
use you in our marketing pieces?" So, what are some things that employees should be thinking about if they do work in a place where their main gig is not being a model, their main gig is not being an actor, but they're being asked, "Hey, can you?" do this, that, or the other. Are they negotiating away all of the rights for their doppelganger if they just show up and they do stuff? And now, does the company own their likeness because they've done
Right.
this while they were an employee?
Right. I definitely think it would come down to now we need to have departmental, like a larger, within the company, a department that specializes in maybe it's the legal team, maybe specializing in how employees can, of course, protect themselves and their intellectual property. I also think it's kind of horrible, but it's most likely going to be the fact that whoever's thinking about it and has the resources to invest in that and protect their intellectual property will be the ones that are able to kind of skirt that exploitation by companies. Um, and so I think employees do have to think about more so not about maybe their likeness, their image, but rather their intellect and the products that they use or the things that they're putting out and their creativity is a lot more under fire simply because it can be digitized and replicated so easily.
Right. I mean, these days I'm thinking about company Zoom meetings that are all being recorded,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So, what I mean, couldn't AI just pick up everyone's likeness, voice, mannerisms
Yeah.
via the Zoom recordings, right?
Yeah. And I think right now what's scary is that because there is nothing to stop people from doing that, yes, you're because you're online, because you're, putting your face out there, because you're putting your creativity out there, you're just going to be giving data to the LLM, and the whatever machine learning is learning from you and how to replicate you. So, yeah, it's scary.
Sounds like it's a huge can of worms that
Yes,
people really need to
it's the
understand.
Wild West.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, what are some, like, from an ethics point of view,
Mhm.
and that's your expertise.
Mhm.
What would you advise people to just be aware of and watch out for um, when dealing with their doppelganger being out there?
Yeah. Um, I would say simply if it matters to you, because some people don't care, and that's perfectly fine. But if it matters to you, to be aware if that is making an exorbitant amount of profit. I think when it comes down to it, money is probably the biggest thing that determines whether or not you're going to care about your AI digital doppelganger. And maybe potentially creativity, especially for artists, especially for people that are in the creative space. Intellectual property and creative property are the biggest things that contribute to their livelihoods. So, to look from an ethics standpoint, I think it would be, oh man, it's really hard to answer this question because there's just so much that goes into protecting yourself right now, especially against AI. But I think it would be coming down to just, does it matter to you? If so, then create something or have a negotiator, anybody who can be that advocate for you to speak on your intellectual property and your creative property. There needs to be somebody in your corner that is helping you back up kind of your likeness, your being somebody who can advocate.
Are we getting to the point where we have to copyright our likeness?
Yeah, at this point, yes, we are. We have to copyright our likeness. We have to say, "Oh, this is unique to me." Because anything can happen at this point with AI, language models and machine learning. It's a wild west, and copywriting is probably the way to go.
That is interesting. And so, has the law caught up with this, where people can go and talk to lawyers to say, I'd like to copyright my likeness? Or, you know what I mean? Like, is that
Mhm.
happening already? Do you know? Or is that something that we just have to sort of catch up? Everything has to catch up to what's happening
I think
with
right now
technology.
everything does have to catch up. Right now I think we spoke earlier a little bit briefly about how it has been used in a court case. I can't remember which one, but the likeness of somebody's voice, it was, replicated and used as a victim impact statement post-mortem. And that, I think, is particularly interesting, the fact that it was allowed to be put into that court case
Right.
and also utilized in that way. And I think that in particular is kind of a jumping point, maybe a stepping stone for actually considering these things of copywriting and advocacy and negotiators and mediators, at least in terms of intellectual property and digital doppelgangers. So, yes, we have to catch up desperately.
And also, I have another question. I've heard about people who create like music
Hmm.
using AI, and then they might create the lyrics via AI. They're guiding it, right? They say,
Right.
hey, write this song about X, Y, and Z. Then they might say, okay, I'm going to dump this into another platform to create the music. And so, where is that line between giving the artist who kind of gave the prompt the here, this is your intellectual property, versus maybe the AI, the platform,
Mm,
or the owners of the platform saying, no, this is my platform that created it, so the IP is mine. So
mm,
where do you see that from an ethics standpoint?
mm. Good question. Man, Alice hard hitters today. I would think because large language models and machine learning, so machine learning is kind of the general. and then large language models are the more specific. But both of them are tasked with different things. So, in particular, machine learning is for prediction and more classification aspects, and then LLMs are for generative aspects. And that is where I think a majority of the output is used for um, the poems and whatever it may be for people to actually get that result. Either way, both of these technologies utilize learning from previous data sets, whether it be already labeled or not. And that data comes from somewhere, it has to. And that comes from people who are already been creating. So when we get to the base of it, it's neither
Oh,
the
interesting.
person that
It's the
is
collective. You're saying it's from like the
it's
collective
from a
knowledge.
collective. It's from a collective creative output. It's people who have created things and then the machine learning is learning from that and able to recreate and provide something new. Sure, it's new, but it's from somewhere.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure that as we go into the future and deeper into AI, we'll start to see court cases
Oh,
and,
yeah.
laws and whatnot. But, we don't have the answers today, Nika and I, but we
No.
want to at least like let people know of the different things that they should be thinking about as the future takes over today.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, we're
Good
out of
luck,
time.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Nika, for joining us again today.
Yes, thank you so much, Alice.
And thank you to everyone for joining us for yet another episode of Negotiation with Alice.